Alex, it's great to have you back on. Welcome back.
Oh, thanks for having me, Siyamik.
There is some serious riots going on in LA right now. Can you tell us what's happening?
Well, we've had since Friday, we've had an escalation of riotous behavior, and it started with ICE agents executing search warrants at different businesses, and that were hiring undocumented and were falsifying paperwork. They had search warrants, they executed the search warrants, but there's a growing network of unions and activists that are trying to do a rapid response. They even call it rapid response network, and they try to swarm the ICE agents and prevent them from either entering or leaving a location that's a target of their search warrant. And that is a crime in of itself to block any law enforcement agent. It doesn't have to be federal; it could be local as well or state from doing their job, getting in the way. That is obstruction of justice. So that happened on Friday, and there was several people arrested, including David Huerta, the head of the Service Employees International Union, one of their branches, and he tried to block the egress of one of the vans carrying the ones that were being detained, and that's a crime. There's no way around it. And unfortunately, the LAPD, the sheriff's department, did not come to the aid of the ICE agents when they were being blocked and under attack, and that is a sad chapter in the history of Los Angeles because that has never happened before. This is like a whole new area, and it's fraught with the political undertones about the sanctuary city policies enacted at the state and the local level versus federal law that really hasn't changed.
Now, you mentioned that the LAPD and the sheriff didn't come to help in this situation. Can you explain to us how does the laws work?
Well, department policy for the sheriff's department has been in existence for decades. You can go back 50 years. And it always says that you have to come to the aid of an officer, a peace officer, who is under attack or in distress in any way. You're supposed to come to their aid. Doesn't mean that you're endorsing or participating in whatever enforcement action they're doing, but by virtue of the fact that they're under attack, you're going to go to their defense. That is your job, literally, in law enforcement. And that doesn't mean you're endorsing, for example, an immigration effort. Doesn't mean you're endorsing that if you're coming to their aid. But the sheriff took that position, the board of supervisors, the mayor, the chief of police, that they don't want to be involved in it at all, which meant you left the federal agents defenseless with this very organized effort to try to basically block their ability to do their job. And that, as you can see, from that point on Friday, it only escalated further as more and more rioters decided to join the fray and inflict more and more damage. Now look what happened today in the aftermath of this.
Is there any laws that could cause the sheriff or the LAPD getting involved, getting trouble because they could be getting involved in enforcing ICE's policies?
Not really. I mean, there's a sanctuary policies about that we're not going to participate in immigration enforcement, and I don't think anyone has an issue with that. But when you start attaching the label of sanctuary, you're giving the false impression to the public here in California that federal law no longer applies. And that false perception has very tragic consequences because when federal enforcement does what they do, and every single president, be it Democrat or Republican, has enforced immigration laws to one form or another, all of a sudden everybody's acting outraged, like, oh my God, this is a miscarriage of justice. It's not. It's the same policy at the federal level. And the the actual interfering with their arrest is an obstruction of justice charge. And if you do that same thing, you can be charged locally and you can be charged federally.
So when you mentioned that they didn't allow the ICE agents to do what they were doing, what was the situation like? What was the numbers like? Was there a large number of people that were doing this?
Yes, I mean they had a caravan, looked like a 4 or 5 ICE vans. They're unmarked vans. They went to a location, I think it was in the garment district, and They went in to detain people, but it was a place that was one way in, one way out. And when they tried to leave, the protesters with their picket signs surrounded the vans and blocked the exit from the location. And this is where David Huerta was involved. He was physically standing in front of the van, trying to block the van from moving forward. And an officer from immigration, ICE, came to tell him, "Hey, move aside," and he ended up shoving the ICE agent. And that's a charge in of itself. Now you're assaulting a federal officer while they're trying to do their job, and that's what got him in jail. And now he had to post a $50,000 bond to get released from jail, and he's facing serious felony charges in federal court, not state court, federal court. Different ballgame.
Now, where do these protests go from here, based on what you're seeing?
Well, it looks like there's several rallies that are going to be organized. For example, on Saturday, they have a thing called "No Kings." You know, that's their big rally cry. So that's going to be staged in various areas. And the issue is when they're going to continue because I think Pam Bondi and Tom Homan, who's the director of ICE, are saying we're going to continue these enforcement activities. We're not going to be deterred. In fact, Bill Asaley, the assistant U.S. attorney, said we're going to continue and we're going to go twice as hard. So whatever effort the local protesters are trying to do is not altering the behavior of the federal agents, and it's actually exposing some of their personnel to very serious charges. So it's not a smart idea in their minds. But what did they accomplish? A lot of destruction in the downtown corridor. Another black eye for the reputation of LA and the world. World.
And in terms of controlling these protests so that they don't become violent, is there a way that LAPD and the sheriff or any law enforcement agency can do that? Is it possible to keep these from becoming violent?
Well, one thing they need to do is they need to reach out to organizers of these protests and tell them, hey, you guys want to protest? We'll help you. Hey, you want to do a march down the street, whatever, we'll control traffic and all that. Make your point, be heard, exercise your First Amendment right. But the people are showing up wearing black and masks and helmets and all that stuff. They're not protesters. They're professional agitators, and their goal is destruction. And they can be arrested, they can be detained, they can be dispersed. But the sheriff and the LAPD, they got to start, being decisive in what they're doing. Right now, they're too much waiting and seeing, and they issue orders of, unlawful assembly, but they don't follow up the unlawful assembly order with a move in and starting to disperse or arrest people. That's not happening. So all that does is embolden the agitators to continue what they're doing because they're being rewarded for their behavior.
What do these agitators want? Do they want to get ICE stopped, or what do they want?
They're one. A lot of them they're just for the pure fun, entertainment. Do some looting, make a little bit of money out of the looting, and they have a profound hatred of law enforcement in general. For example, belting the CHP officers on the 101 freeway with the bricks, they have nothing to do with immigration enforcement, but there they were, destroying the CHP radio cars on the 101 freeway. So their goal is, a lot of it is just sheer anarchy. They revel in anarchy, creating dissension, dysfunction, and the more they can expose government as being inept and incompetent, they get a thrill out of that.
And what is it like to be a police officer, law enforcement agent right now in LA?
Well, right now, the Sheriff's Department, the LAPD, both agencies are severely understaffed. I mean, we're talking crisis level of staffing. They're missing between the two roughly 4,000 sworn or just gone. They weren't replaced as they retired. And so the crews you see out there now in the patrol stations for the Sheriff's Department and the LAPD divisions, patrol divisions, those are skeleton crews. They don't have the resources to put together mobile field forces and send them off to the riots while they can still handle the business at their stations. No, they have to basically really shut down operations to a big extent just to have enough personnel to man. And then to be able to sustain that day after day is making it very hard. Right now on the sheriff's line, I'm talking to the deputies, they're working double shifts. Now they're looking at triple shifts. And there is no rest. So they're dragging their feet there because this poor planning and poor leadership.
You mentioned triple shift. What does that mean to our audience that may not know?
Well, a normal shift is an 8-hour shift, and you're on your toes, you're fully rested, and you're handling the business in front of you. A double shift, now you're at 16 hours. And again, you got to be on your toes. Now imagine going from 16 to going past 20 hours. The human mind cannot stay that alert that long. Firefighters get away with full shifts, but they go back to their firehouse and they go to sleep. And then when the alarm sounds off, they're back on the road. In law enforcement, you can't do that. If you work in patrol or you're on the front lines on one of these mobile field forces, you're under the gun the entire time with no rest.
There has been a lot of discussion and debate whether the National Guard should come in or not. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, given the staffing levels of both the sheriff and LAPD, Luna, who's supposed to be the mutual aid coordinator for LA and Orange County, he should have known that his staffing level was not up to par to be able to staff this event while also handling all the business of the patrol in the entire county. He should have already called up the National Guard right out the bat. At Friday, at the hint of Friday of trouble, he should probably order up the first 500 National Guard troops and start from there. And they would have been under his control, not the president. And it would have been local control. And they were so paralyzed by the thought of somehow supporting ICE agents that they didn't want to commit themselves to doing anything. And in that paralysis by analysis, as the saying goes, well, they were a day late and a dollar short.
In terms of the people that are in LA right now that have businesses there and they're concerned that this could lead to looting or other issues, and it could impact the safety of Angelinos, what are your thoughts?
It already happened. Over this weekend, they had over 6 businesses that were looted, thrashed. We're talking jewelry stores, a mobile phone store. We're talking athletic apparel stores. Different businesses in the downtown area were looted and totally thrashed. You saw the Waymo taxis that were burned to crisp on off the 101 freeway on Aliso and Arcadia Street and the overpasses. So businesses are being harmed right now, and that is physical harm. But now, how many people are not going to these businesses because of all of the mess that's happening in the downtown quarter? How many customers, how many tourists are staying away and holding back because it seems unsafe? That is that is an even bigger damage to the reputation and the business climate in LA.
And how long do you think? I know it's hard to predict these things, but how long do you think these riots will go for?
My guess is if you look at the history of riots, it's going to go through probably another day or so. And there might be other events that kind of reignites passion. But right now, you can see a few more days of the cycle. And it's going to be dictated by if ICE does more enforcement activities and these people can reorganize themselves and go to the next ICE enforcement activity or not. And so you can expect to see a little bit more of this drama.
And in terms of the public officials debating each other in the open, how do you think this is impacting the situation right now?
Well, it bolsters the spirits of the people, the agitators, and the rioters and the anarchists, because they see that dysfunction and they take actually they're thrilled by it because that is what they want to do. They want to create this dysfunction. So when the governor the mayor, the sheriff, all these people, and the councilwoman in particular of LA, they failed to denounce the rioters and agitators. When they do that, they're only serving to give them more courage and foment further riotous behavior. Doesn't help at all, and it becomes a distraction. I mean, look at what Newsom did just today. He's suing the president, claiming that the presence of National Guard troops and Marines is harmful. I think it's what the rioters are doing is what's harmful, but that's literally what the Governor Newsom is claiming.
Alex, there is another element of these protests that there is a peaceful side to them too. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, there's a valid argument about immigration law and enforcing it and how to do it. And I think that argument is best left to public displays that are peaceful and, most importantly, should be directed to our congressional leaders to get their act together, get over to Washington, and do comprehensive immigration reform. That should be the focus and make that happen. But what they're doing is each Congress just kicks a can down the road, and every president takes a different take on how they want to enforce immigration law. So you get this yo-yo effect of, okay, we got open borders, no, they're closed borders. We're going to enforce the law. We're not going to enforce the law. And so there's kind of a whiplash effect among the community where they believe how safe or not the undocumented population is in terms of being facing deportation. I think they should just resolve that issue once and for all in Congress. That is where the problem begins. It's where the problem can end. But it's going to take leadership. But right now, I don't see that leadership in Washington.
We have heard that it could be a misdemeanor if the sheriff or the LAPD, the police, help the ICE agents in what they're doing. Is that true in Los Angeles?
I have not seen that legislation at all. But what I have seen is Senate Bill 54, which bars the state, the counties, and the cities from expending resources to support immigration enforcement. That part I've seen. But it still allows for some cooperation. For example, when you have felony suspects in the county jail or being released from state prison, they can be handed over to ICE for deportation, for example. And that's just a public safety, common sense thing. So the elements are in there, but I have not seen anything that says that you're guilty of a misdemeanor, for example, if you do something. It's about using public resources.
Alex, what do you think will happen to the people that are arrested in this process?
Well, if they're arrested federally by federal agents like David Huerta, they're facing serious charges, and the assistant U.S. attorney said he will prosecute. So I just think it's a really bad idea to get in their way because they're able, they're willing, and they have the law on their side.
What about the agitators you mentioned, and some are getting arrested? Would they get it? Would this be a federal charge that they would face, or would it be a local?
If they're assaulting peace officers, it can be federal and local. It can be both. And if they're strictly arrested locally for something that doesn't involve assaulting a peace officer, it's most likely going to be a local charge. It'll be state penal code charges. For example, the looting, the vandalizing, things like that, or arson.
Do you think these riots will impact the public perception of immigrants?
The way they've been, the activists have been doing their protest, they're claiming that the Trump administration is against immigration and they're trying to lump everybody together. And that's a false narrative. I don't think anyone is against legal immigrants, green card holders, visa holders. It's a crowd that's illegal and involved in criminal activity. They're not chasing abuelita, dropping off their grandkids at school. They're going after the people who have been deported and they return, which now becomes a federal offense, a felony. That's the crowd they're going after. The burglary tourists, the ones who've been convicted of murder, rape, robbery, all these different charges, and they re-entered, those are the ones they're targeting right now. And Those are the ones that I don't think anyone can, in good conscience, claim that defending them is defending immigrants. No, you're conflating the two into one, and that's just a false narrative.
There are some reports that people say that ICE went to a Home Depot parking lot to conduct these kind of deportations. What are your thoughts on that? Is that true?
Well, in one case, they were actually going after a target who was in the Home Depot lot, who someone had an arrest warrant for. So you go where you're going to find the person. That's natural. The other one, I think the Paramount one, it turns out there was an ICE office next to a Home Depot. And people somehow thought that by them going there, they were targeting the Home Depot. No, it's actually their facilities next door to Home Depot.
So essentially, from what you have gathered right now, the people that are getting targeted by ICE, they all have criminal background.
That's what I understand, and that's what I would encourage ICE to stick to and focus on. And I think they're going to have public support behind that. If they try to veer off into doing other things or expand their search to someone else, they say they can't find their primary, but someone else says, all right, show me your papers. That's where you start losing support from the public, because we don't want to have the gardener, taken out, or someone who's just minding their own business, who's been here for years, other than their immigration status, because they're a big factor in our economy is the undocumented labor and the businesses they operate. So I think separating the two, ICE will remain in the public's good graces.
And the media right now is making it seem like they're going after everyone.
Yes, that the same media is the one that was telling you over the weekend that these are largely peaceful protests. I mean, it was comical. In fact, it seemed like they were working off of a cue sheet. Just keep repeating peaceful protests as often as you can. And but you look at the images on the ground, it's like, oh my God, this doesn't look peaceful to me. I mean, that's I think it's just a play with the media, the mainstream media, and they need to be a little more honest with their audience.
Alex Villanueva, former sheriff of Los Angeles County, it was great to have you on California Insider.
Good to see you again, Siyamik.